Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chair Yellen. Chair Yellen, your predecessor, Chairman Bernanke, both before this committee and in columns that he's written, discussed some of the limits of monetary policy, what monetary policy is capable of and what it's not capable of. And one of the things that he said, I'm paraphrasing, but I think he said this on numerous occasions, is that accommodative monetary policy has the limit of being only stimulative in the sense that it brings economic activity forward in time. It doesn't create new wealth, goods or services, but it shifts the timing of economic activity. Do you agree with Chairman Bernanke in that respect?
Well, it sometimes does shift the timing of economic activity, brings forward a decision that might have been made later. But I think the stance of policy also has repercussions that have a more longer-lasting impact on the state of demand. It's not only a matter of shifting purchases early. By having more accommodative financial conditions, there are repercussions that can be longer-lasting than that.
You may disagree. My sense of the academic consensus is that the main effect of accommodative monetary policy is to induce economic activity that was going to occur later at an earlier time, and that is the principal activity, or the principal. But you're acknowledging there is some of that phenomenon.
There is some of that phenomenon. It's not the only thing.
So to what extent is this unprecedented accommodative monetary policy for these many years now part of the reason that we've had relatively anemic growth today? Isn't it very likely the case that some of the economic activity that would be occurring today was dragged forward in years gone by, and it's already occurred in the past?
So it's very hard to know how large that effect is, but I continue to think that our accommodative stance of policy, for example, low mortgage rates, is continuing to boost activity in the housing sector. It hasn't only pulled activity forward to suppress it now. I believe it has.
The housing sector is still not recovered its previous highs. I mean,
well, it's undergone very substantial shocks.
Have you attempted to quantify how much of the economic growth that would be occurring in 2017 and 2018 and 2019 is happening now because this ongoing activity of having these extremely low, unnaturally low interest rates?
We've not tried to determine that. We have in the past looked at whether or not low rates have had less impact on spurring economic activity than in the past, namely whether or not there might be some attenuation in the impact of policy. But in the past, our analysis suggested that it is not only a matter of shifting the timing of economic activity, but also stimulating investment and spending decisions.
Even if that's so, I mean, my guess is that the principal effect is shifting the timing, and you may disagree with that. I got the impression from your predecessor that his view was that the principal effect was shifting the timing. It's certainly an effect, and I would think it's something that the Fed ought to be looking at, because to the extent that that's a significant effect, what you're doing today is damaging economic growth going forward to some extent. Let me touch on another concern. It seems from the many, from what you and others have said, there's been a great focus on the demand side of the effect on of monetary policy, and not so much on the supply side. One of the concerns that I have is the danger that, first of all, you've been missing the estimates on the supply side as well as economic growth overall, right? I mean, we are now, I think, 12 consecutive years in which the Fed has systematically overestimated economic growth. It's been overly optimistic about the supply side phenomena, such as workers returning to the workforce, improving productivity level, that have not been happening to the extent that the Fed has hoped. And one of my concerns is that the inducement to expand capacity, the unnatural excess capacity that comes from unnaturally low interest rates, could get the Fed into a kind of vicious cycle where all that excess capacity creates excess commodities, downward pressure on prices, makes it that much harder to hit your 2% inflation goal, and creates this dilemma that's hard to get out of. Is there a danger that the ultra-low interest rates are contributing to that?
Well, I think investment is been running at a very slow pace. We've really not had the creation of a lot of excess capacity.
Well,
One of
globally
the
we have.
reasons that productivity growth has been so slow, and it's been disappointingly slow, is that we've had very weak investment in the aftermath of the crisis, and more recently, in recent months, it has turned negative and is extremely low, even outside of energy, where we have a substantial cutback in drilling activity. So I don't think an impact of low interest rates has been to stimulate an investment boom or a boom in
No,
capacity.
I think that's largely true in the United States, but globally, where this experiment has been going on since everybody is in this business of ultra-low interest rates, it seems, certainly if you talk to people in the steel industry, they would suggest that there's massive overcapacity, and not just steel, but in other commodities as well. And I do worry that we've encouraged companies to take on massive amounts of debt to create this overcapacity, and it's just one of the many distortions. But I thank you for your time. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Tester.